My first book tag. I am really a member of the BookTube community now. Thank you to Heather Reeds for tagging me in the Cinderella Book Tag, in which the questions are based on elements from the Cinderella fairy tale, namely the pumpkin, which gets turned into a coach, the mice, which get turned into horses, the glass slipper, the ball gown, and the fairy godmother. So let's get started. Question 1. Is there a bookish location or bookish event that you have not been able to get to, but that you would really like to visit or experience? Why, yes, there is. And it's not a specific location, but it is any location where I could trade in my copy of The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funke with the original German version, Herr der Diebe. This is because I started learning German a few years ago, and when I finally got good enough to read novels, I could not find the novels I actually wanted to read. I was a poor student living in a proverbial garret. There was no way I could afford shipping fees for books from Europe. That was just the reality of it. So if I had access to a magical pumpkin coach that would take me anywhere, I would ask it to bring me to a bookstore in Germany with very reasonable prices, and I would get not just Der Herr der Diebe, but also Cornelia Funke's Ink World Trilogy, die Tintenwelt Trilogie, and Michael Endes' Die unendliche Geschichte, that's the never-ending story. And I'm not sure if what the titles are in English, but the Edelstein Trilogie and the Trilogie der Träume by Kerstin Gier. Question 2, based on the mice which get turned into horses. Are there any books that are small fry on BookTube that you would like to get bigger? Why, yes. Specifically this book, but also anything by this author. I'm talking about Downsiders by Neal Shusterman, which is one of the best books I have ever read. And when anyone asks me for recommendations, I recommend this. And I don't care what your taste in books is. This is just really good. Do you like YA novels? Perfect. Teenage protagonists. Do you like romance? It's got a bit of romance. Do you like speculative fiction? The world building in this is excellent. Do you like literary fiction? This has deceptively beautiful prose. And I mean deceptively because you don't expect that kind of language in a book written for teenagers. I just can't praise this book enough. So if you are not aware of who Neal Shusterman is, or if you are but you haven't read Downsiders, what are you waiting for? Question 3, based on The Glass Slipper. Are there any books that you have loved and lost and would like to get back? Oh yes, there are. And they are the books that used to be shelved right next to King of Shadows by Susan Cooper. Susan Cooper is the author of the 5 books in the Dark is Rising sequence, and it was the Dark is Rising books that I very foolishly gave away. I really don't know what I was thinking. I remember that I was going through a pretty ascetic year in my life. As you can see behind me, I'm a big collector, a maximalist when it comes to books. And I really did love my 5 Dark is Rising books. And yet I gave them away. I also gave away my Lord of the Rings books and a lot of my Tolkien. I gave away my Narnia books, all 7 of them. I finally did draw the line at my Jane Austen novels, and I'm so glad I did, but I wish I had drawn the line earlier. 4th question, based on the ball gown. Is there any book you have not read but are pretty sure would be the perfect fit for you? Yes, there is. And that would be Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And I say that because when I read State of Fear, it was awesome. And that's saying a lot because as a novel, it's not that great. What I mean is that the plot is, well, paper thin, the characters are two-dimensional, he doesn't really go in for lyrical writing. And it's pretty obvious that this novel is just a vehicle for his ideas about where science and politics meet. Nevertheless, they were fantastic ideas. I still think of them today, and I read this maybe 10 years ago. And I've heard that Jurassic Park is so much better in terms of both the literary elements and the science and the ideas. If State of Fear, in its mediocrity, I'm sorry, Mr. Crichton, but if State of Fear in its mediocrity could be such a great reading experience, then I'm pretty sure Jurassic Park will blow my socks off. Finally, question number 5, based on the fairy godmother. If I had a fairy godmother standing in front of me who could make a book magically appear, whether it is an existing book or a book that has not even been written, what would it be? Well, so that I don't repeat my answers and just ask her for the titles I've already mentioned or for my old books back, well, there is another old book that I would really like back, and that is the book that used to be shelved next to Sing Down the Moon by Scott Odell. It's also a Scott Odell book. It was Island of the Blue Dolphins, my childhood copy, which was stolen from my house by someone who'd better hope I never find out and that we never meet again. As you saw from all the books I already mentioned, I really love fantasy, especially portal fantasy and magical realism. I love speculative fiction. I like unrealistic elements in the mix. Island of the Blue Dolphins has none of that. It is realistic to the point of being stark, and it was one of my favorite novels as a child, nonetheless. I also really loved the vintage cover design. It was green with Karana sitting down with her knees drawn up and looking up with her dog Rontu beside her. I still think that is the most beautiful cover that Island of the Blue Dolphins has ever had. If I do find a vintage copy with that cover, I will buy it. I'll be sad that it wasn't my childhood copy, but I'll be glad I got a second chance to have it in my collection. And that's it. If you have any comments about the books I mentioned, great, I'd love to hear them. If you have any comments on the books that were only here in spirit, I would love to read them even more. I know that I'm supposed to tag people at the end of this video, but I see that the people who usually interact with me have already done it, and I don't know others that well, so maybe in the future I'll be able to tag people. But until then, thanks for listening.